Dating apps are supposed to help us find connection, maybe even love. But sometimes one simple swipe can open the door to something much darker. These are 3 true stories of dates that turned into nightmares, and they could happen to anyone, including you. I was 20 when this happened, young, still figuring myself out, and maybe a little too trusting. I had just moved out of my parents' place and was renting a small apartment in Tempe, Arizona, juggling school and a part-time job. My schedule didn't leave much room for meeting new people, so I did what most people my age did. I downloaded a dating app. I picked Spark, one of those trendy apps that promised better matches and fewer creeps. For a while, I just scrolled out of boredom, swiping left more than right. But then I came across a profile that caught my attention. His name was Travis. He had that confident, clean-cut look, nice suit, slicked back hair, and a warm smile. His profile bio said he worked in real estate development and was always looking to invest in great people. I rolled my eyes at that, but he was cute. We matched. He messaged me within minutes. At first, our conversation was surprisingly normal. He was polite, asked thoughtful questions, and didn't try to steer things in a weird direction. I was careful, always a little guarded, but I found myself looking forward to his messages. A few days in, he asked if I wanted to get a drink. I hesitated. I usually preferred meeting in daylight, in public places with people around, but Travis suggested a wine bar he knew in Cave Creek, a small town about 40 minutes from me. He said it had a great outdoor patio and live jazz. Totally worth the drive, he promised. I was still unsure, so he sweetened the offer. He'd pick me up so I wouldn't have to worry about driving at night. I know, I should have said no, but when he pulled up outside my building in a black Lexus RX, shiny and spotless, wearing a crisp button-up and that same charming smile, I got in. The drive started off fine. He played soft instrumental music, nothing obnoxious. We chatted a bit. He told me about his portfolio, dropped names of people he supposedly worked with, and casually mentioned that he'd just flown back from a development meeting in Miami. At first, I played along. I nodded, laughed when appropriate. But deep down, I started to feel something was off. The stories didn't feel grounded, too polished, like he was reading from a script he wrote for himself. He said he had multiple condos downtown, but the way he kept repeating it felt like he was trying to convince someone, maybe even himself. I didn't say anything, though. We were already halfway there. By the time we pulled into the bar's gravel lot, the sun had dipped below the hills, and the town was wrapped in a quiet darkness. The place looked more like a converted barn than a wine bar. It sat alone on the edge of a dusty road with only a flickering neon open sign and a few scattered pickups in the parking lot. I got out slowly, trying to keep calm. Travis smiled, gestured toward the entrance, and said, "You're gonna love this place. It's got that rustic charm." I followed him in, my steps heavy with second thoughts. The inside of the bar was nothing like what I imagined when he said wine bar. It was dimly lit, with wood-paneled walls and the faint smell of spilled beer and cigarette smoke. A dusty jukebox played old country tunes in the corner. There was no jazz band, no wine list, just a chalkboard behind the bar with a few beers and cheap mixed drinks. A handful of older men sat scattered along the bar, nursing bottles and staring blankly at the television overhead. When we walked in, a few of them turned to look at me, too long, too deliberately, and then went back to their drinks. I felt their eyes linger, though. Travis didn't seem bothered. He swaggered up to the bar like he was a regular, ordered 2 whiskey sours without asking me, and led us to a sticky booth near the back. I sat across from him, trying to shake off the growing unease in my gut. He slid one of the drinks to me, leaned back, and gave me a cocky little grin. "That drive was worth it, right?" he said. I gave a tight smile. "Sure, it's unique." He launched into more stories, barely sipping his drink. One about buying property in Phoenix before the market surged. Another about how his business partners didn't have the guts to take risks like he did. He dropped big numbers casually, like they were no big deal. Closed on a $2.7 million condo unit last week. Dropped $50K on a vintage watch. that kind of thing. I nodded politely, but inside I was rolling my eyes. His voice was too smooth, his gestures too rehearsed. None of it felt authentic. I didn't see a successful entrepreneur. I saw a guy trying really hard to impress someone half his age. Then he leaned in and said, "You know, I could really help you out. If you're ever short on rent or school stuff, I like taking care of women who deserve it." That's when my stomach turned. I gave a short laugh and said, "That's sweet, but I'm good." He just smiled again and raised his glass. I took a sip of my drink and immediately regretted it. It was way too strong, and I hadn't eaten much that day. I put it down and excused myself to go to the restroom. Inside the tiny bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror. I could leave now, I thought, call a ride. But there was no signal, just one blinking bar and no data connection. The bar was too far out. I returned to the booth and told Travis I wasn't feeling well. I made up a story about getting a call from my roommate who needed me back. He seemed irritated but nodded. We walked back out into the warm Arizona night. The parking lot was darker now, and I noticed we were one of the last cars left. The drive back started out quiet. I kept looking at my phone, hoping to catch a signal. Travis tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, agitated. "You know," he said after a while, "you don't need to play games. If you weren't into it, you could have just said so." I froze. "What do you mean?" He scoffed. "Come on, you act like you're too good for a guy like me. Is that it?" I didn't say that. I just wasn't feeling well. He went silent for a beat, then abruptly pulled the car over onto the shoulder of the road. We were in the middle of nowhere, just desert brush and empty highway stretching in both directions. The air inside the car felt thick. Travis turned the engine off, and the silence that followed was deafening. The kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. He looked over at me slowly. "You know," he said, voice low, "I don't pick up girls like you for nothing." I shifted in my seat, my hand inching toward the door handle. "I think you should take me home. Now." He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned over, fast. His hand landed on my thigh, and his face was too close to mine. I yanked the handle and pushed the door open, stumbling out onto the shoulder of the road. Gravel bit into my shoes as I backed away from the car. "What the hell?" he barked, stepping out after me. "You serious right now?" "Stay away from me!" I shouted, louder than I meant to. He paused for a moment, scanning the dark road, maybe realizing how bad this looked. Then he got back in his car, slammed the door, and peeled off, kicking dust and small stones into the air. And just like that, I was alone. No car, no lights, no phone signal, just endless desert on either side and the hum of cicadas in the distance. I stood there for a moment, stunned. Then I started walking. I didn't know which direction was best. I just followed the road, hoping to find a gas station or a lit sign, anything. My sandals weren't made for this, and each step hurt more than the last. The heat from the pavement had cooled, but the air was still thick and dry. My hands shook, and every shadow in the desert brush looked like something watching me. The further I walked, the more surreal it all felt, like I wasn't really there. Just some version of me, drifting through the night, trying to piece together how a simple date had gone so sideways. About 30 minutes later, when my feet were aching and my voice hoarse from muttering to myself to stay calm, I saw headlights. I ducked behind a bush at first, instincts kicking in. What if it was Travis coming back? But the car slowed, then stopped. A woman's voice called out, cautious but kind. "You okay, honey?" I stepped out into the headlights, shielding my eyes. It was a middle-aged woman, probably in her early 50s, behind the wheel of a small white SUV. She looked like someone's aunt, wearing a pink sweatshirt and a concerned expression. "I got left out here," I said, my voice cracking. "My date he left me." She nodded like she'd seen worse and said, "Come on, get in. I'll take you to the nearest gas station. You can call someone from there." I climbed in, overwhelmed with relief. She didn't ask too many questions, just handed me a water bottle from the cup holder and turned the radio to something soft. She didn't even ask my name until we got to the Circle K 10 miles down the road. That night stayed with me, not just because of the fear, but because of how quickly things went from charming to dangerous. There was no dramatic music, no flashing red signs, just a slow shift, words that didn't sit right, a look that lingered too long, a tone that changed when I said no. Since then, I've been a lot more cautious. I meet in public, I drive myself, and I never ignore that gut feeling again. Dating apps make it easy to think you know someone before you ever meet them. But trust, real trust, is something you earn, not something you swipe into. I was 26 when this happened, living alone in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside Spokane, Washington. Life was pretty routine: work, gym, sleep, repeat. And honestly, it got a little lonely. So one night I gave in to the usual fix and downloaded a dating app called Hinge Point, just to see who was out there. After a week of swiping through profiles of shirtless guys holding fish or quoting Joe Rogan, I came across someone different. His name was Nathan. He looked clean-cut, smiling in a flannel, standing in front of what looked like a bookstore. His profile wasn't trying too hard, just said he worked in IT, loved classic movies, and liked quiet nights more than loud bars. Sounded safe. We started chatting, and he was surprisingly normal. He asked about my job, didn't get weird when I told him I liked horror movies, and even shared a few of his own favorites, stuff like The Others and The Sixth Sense. For once, it felt like a real human interaction. We talked for about 2 weeks before agreeing to meet in person. I suggested a 24-hour diner near my place, somewhere public and casual. He didn't argue. That first date went fine. Not sparks flying magical or anything, but he was polite, didn't talk over me, and paid for the coffee and pancakes. We talked about work, childhood memories, and our favorite Halloween costumes growing up. Nothing about him seemed off. He walked me to my car after and said, "Let me know if you'd want to do this again sometime." I smiled. Yeah, maybe. A few days later, we messaged some more and agreed to hang out again, this time at my place. I know, but he seemed normal. And after that calm first date, I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I cleaned the apartment, lit a candle, and even baked those pre-cut pumpkin sugar cookies to seem more chill than I actually was. He showed up right on time, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing that same bookstore boy flannel. It felt like a good second step. At first, it was just small talk. We sat on the couch, watched part of The Others again, joked about how young Nicole Kidman looked. But something changed once I got up to get us glasses from the kitchen. When I came back, he was no longer on the couch. He was standing in the hallway that led to my bedroom. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Bathroom's the other way." He turned, startled, then smiled. "Oh, sorry. I was just curious about your place. It's cozy." I forced a chuckle. "Thanks. Just try not to get lost." He came back to the living room and sat down again, but the vibe had shifted. He started asking more personal questions. How long I'd lived alone, if I had roommates before, if my lease came with security features like cameras or alarms. Stuff that felt off. I sipped the wine, trying not to let it show that I was now counting down the minutes until I could politely ask him to leave. I tried to steer the conversation back to neutral territory. Movies, travel, anything. But Nathan kept drifting into stranger topics. He asked what kind of locks my door had, whether I ever felt unsafe living alone, if I'd ever had to call the cops before. At first, I thought maybe he was just awkward, or trying to make conversation and failing miserably. But then he started commenting on the things I owned, not like cool bookshelf or I love that painting, more like he was taking inventory. "You keep your keys in that little bowl by the door, huh? Is that a real security camera in the corner or just a dummy? Your laptop looks expensive. Work gives you that?" It didn't feel like small talk anymore. It felt like he was studying the layout, my layout. At one point, I excused myself to the bathroom just to breathe. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, heart pounding, and mentally listed all the ways this night could go sideways. I wasn't in immediate danger, yet, but every instinct in me screamed that something wasn't right. When I came out, I found him not on the couch, not even in the kitchen. He was in my bedroom. He was standing by my dresser, holding a framed photo of me and my dad from when I was little. "What are you doing in here?" I asked, trying not to let the panic crack my voice. He turned around, still holding the photo like it was nothing. "Just looking. You were cute as a kid." I took a step forward and held out my hand. "I think it's time to call it a night." He blinked slowly. "What? Did I do something wrong?" "I just don't think I'm feeling it," I said, keeping my tone even. "Thanks for stopping by." He put the photo down, gently, like he was trying to prove he wasn't dangerous, and walked past me to the door. I followed him, watching every move. He didn't argue, didn't beg, just gave me this strange, almost condescending smile as he slipped on his shoes. "I thought we had something," he said, not angry, not sad, just flat. "I'm sorry," I said, opening the door, and he left. No slammed doors, no yelling, just walked off into the night like he was leaving a coffee shop, not a person's private home he'd just roamed through uninvited. I locked the door, bolted it, and double-checked every window. I even pulled a chair in front of the door, like some cliché horror movie character. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind replayed every weird thing he said, every step he took in my hallway, every glance he gave to my belongings. I blocked his number, unmatched him on the app, deleted our conversation thread like it never happened. But the thing is, some people don't need a key to get inside your life. Sometimes they already took what they came for. I tried to put it behind me. I told myself I'd dodged something. What exactly, I didn't know, and honestly didn't want to find out. But Nathan was gone, and that was enough. For a few nights, I slept with the hallway light on. Then, about a week later, I got home from work and decided to check the footage from my new outdoor security camera. I'd had it installed after the incident, not out of paranoia exactly, more like peace of mind. I opened the app on my phone and scrubbed through the footage quickly, mostly expecting to see the usual: delivery drivers, a stray cat, maybe a neighbor walking by. But then, on a Thursday night around 2:13 a.m., I saw him, Nathan. He was just standing there, right in front of my apartment door, wearing the same flannel from our dates, standing motionless for nearly 5 full minutes. He didn't knock, didn't try the door, just stood there, facing it, like he was waiting. After a few minutes, he tilted his head slightly, as if listening, then turned and walked off. No car, no sound, just disappeared into the night like he'd never been there. My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard a sound. I'd been home. I was asleep while he stood less than 5 feet from me, separated only by a locked door and a thin wall. I deleted the footage. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me didn't want it sitting there in my phone, like some video demon waiting to remind me. I didn't tell anyone at first. It felt like a bad dream that got caught on tape. But I did start sleeping with a baseball bat under the bed, and I kept the security app open in the background at all times. And then, 2 weeks later, it happened again. Same time, around 2:10 a.m., same spot, right in front of my door, same behavior, still silent, just staring at the door. But this time, he looked up at the camera, not in surprise, not in fear. He knew it was there. He looked at it and smiled. Then he turned and walked away. No message, no return call, nothing. I haven't seen him since. That was almost a year ago now. I moved a few months after, changed my number, deleted every trace of my dating profile. But the fear never fully left. Because some people don't knock, they wait. And sometimes it's not what they do that haunts you, it's what they don't. I'm not proud of it, but yeah, sometimes I swipe just to feel something. After a long week of warehouse shifts and solo dinners, a quick match on Tinder felt like a spark in the dark. That's how I met Jenna. She wasn't drop-dead gorgeous or anything, but her smile in the photos looked real. Her bio said she was 26, into photography, and down for deep conversations or quiet nights. We chatted for a few days, nothing too intense. But she was the one who brought up meeting in person. She said she was in town temporarily, staying at a motel on the edge of Santa Fe, doing freelance work for some wedding shoot. sounded legit. She didn't push anything sexual, didn't seem sketchy, just said she was tired of texting and would rather grab a drink, maybe chill for a bit and watch a movie in her room. I hesitated. Something about meeting at a motel felt off, but she sent me the address, even a room number, 2114 at the Desert Trail Inn. I looked it up. It was real, cheap, run down and in the middle of nowhere, but still real. Low-key, quiet, and no nosy neighbors, she joked. You can bring snacks. I figured, what the hell? I threw on a hoodie, grabbed a six-pack, and drove the 25 minutes out. The motel sat at the edge of the highway, neon sign half lit, flickering like it hadn't been touched since the 80s. I parked under a dim lamppost and walked up to the room. Jenna opened the door with a smile that matched her profile. She wore jeans and a hoodie, hair up in a messy bun, makeup barely there. Her voice was soft and she even laughed nervously, saying, "This feels like a sketchy movie, doesn't it?" We sat on the bed, cracked open beers, and put on something on Netflix. She kept conversation light, asked about my job, my dog, my taste in music. She didn't flirt too hard, didn't come on strong. Honestly, I started to relax. Maybe this wasn't a bad idea after all. But about 20 minutes in, she got up to grab something from her bag near the door, and then a knock. 3 short knocks. She froze, looked at me, then slowly opened the door. 2 men walked in like they owned the place. At first, I thought maybe Jenna knew them. She didn't look scared, just cold, like a switch flipped. The 2 guys barely glanced at her before turning their attention to me. The first guy was tall, maybe 6'2", built like a linebacker, wearing a black hoodie and gloves. The second was leaner, jittery, with a tattoo crawling up his neck and a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. "Yo," the tall one said. "Wallet, phone, now." I froze. Thought it was a joke. It wasn't. The skinny guy pulled something out of his waistband. I didn't see a gun. Might have been a knife, might have just been to scare me. But either way, Jenna didn't stop them. She just stood near the door and watched like this was nothing new. I handed over my phone and wallet. The tall one dug through my pockets anyway. They pulled off my shoes, grabbed my car keys, even checked my socks. They found $30 in cash and laughed like it was an insult. "Guy came out here for a hookup with $30? The skinny one muttered. Then came the worst part. They grabbed duct tape from the bag. The tall one told me to lay face down on the floor. When I hesitated, he pressed his boot against my back and shoved me down hard. They taped my wrists and ankles, then wrapped one loop around my mouth, not tight enough to choke, but enough to muffle. Jenna? She stepped outside, didn't look back, didn't flinch. She might as well have been taking out the trash. Once I was down, they trashed the room, took my jacket, my watch, even the leftover beer. Then they left. No warning, no threats, just walked out and shut the door. I lay there for hours. Every sound outside made my heart race. A car backfiring, a door slamming. I couldn't move, could barely breathe from the panic. Eventually, my shoulders started to cramp. My wrists throbbed. I must have passed out at some point because when I opened my eyes again, daylight was leaking through the thin curtain, and I heard a knock. Not the same as before. A softer, quicker knock. Then a voice. "Housekeeping!" The door creaked open slowly and I heard a gasp. It was a woman, the motel housekeeper. Probably in her 50s, Hispanic accent, short frame, but strong voice. She rushed in the moment she saw me lying there on the floor like some dumped mannequin. "Oh my God, Senor, are you okay?" She grabbed scissors from her cleaning cart and started cutting the tape off my wrists. The moment the one around my mouth came off, I started coughing like I'd been drowning. My throat was dry, voice cracked. "Call the police," I managed to whisper. "Please." She did. The cops arrived maybe 20 minutes later. I was still sitting on the edge of the bed, wrapped in a scratchy motel blanket, hands shaking. I told them everything. How I met Jenna on Tinder, how she lured me out here, how those 2 guys walked in like it was a scheduled appointment. They took notes, asked questions, even pulled prints from the beer bottles. But I could tell from the looks on their faces, they'd seen this before. The officer in charge, a guy named Miller, said it plainly. She used a burner profile, probably fake photos. If we're lucky, we'll get a hit on the surveillance cams. But these setups, they vanish fast. And he was right. The profile was gone. Deleted. No trace. No way to report it in the app. Even the number she used to text me was disconnected within hours. When they tried to track the ID she used to check in at the motel, it was fake too. Out-of-state license that didn't match any real person. She used cash. No credit trail. Nothing to hold on to. The footage from the motel cameras showed her arriving, then the two men coming later, hoods up, faces turned away. They left 10 minutes after the robbery, walking off into the side lot. No plates, no vehicle match. It was like I'd walked into a trap that was never meant to be solved. I got lucky. That's what Officer Miller told me. They didn't want to hurt you, just clean and quick. But next time, don't meet strangers in remote places. I still think about that moment she opened the door, about how calm she looked, like she'd done it before, like I was just a number. I changed my phone number after that, got a new lock screen, started being more careful. I haven't touched a dating app since. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder how many other people have walked into that same setup, thinking it's just another Tinder date, and didn't make it out. Not every match leads to love. Some lead straight into fear. If these stories made you think twice before swiping, go ahead and leave a like. And if you want more real-life horror, hit that subscribe button. This is Mr. Rainy Night. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.